So a few things I want you to know. You can scan the QR code for the order of service if you'd like to have an electronic one. Save a sheet of paper. It's always available at the welcome table, or get the one-sheet version there. If you do have just the one-sheet version, we're saving paper by using hyperlinks rather than including full descriptions of all events. So please do follow up online for the details. If you are online, you will be seeing in the Zoom chat the connection to the order of service there, or if you're on Facebook Live, you can follow it from the website, uucpa.org, on today's service. Please stick around if you can and enjoy Second Sunday Lunch, which is served around the back of this building by the kitchen entrance. There's a small donation requested of regulars to cover costs. If you're a first-timer, please let us treat you to lunch. It's a great time to get to know people and enjoy one another's company. And then at 1 p.m., please come to the Fireside Room, building right here with the dark blue doors. That is our Campus Vision Town Hall meeting to hear about the Campus Vision project plan. You probably came by some of the drawings for it. This is our plan for transforming our campus for the future. Very appropriate for our 75th anniversary year, which this is. And this meeting is critical for our congregation, and all are welcome. The link for attending via Zoom is at the website, uucpa.org. Click on today's date in the calendar, and you will find the meeting and all its information. I'd like to also welcome Alex, who is here from our Justice Partner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Tutor. I'm with Surge at Sacred Heart in San Jose. So thank you for inviting me to share information on Surge at Sacred Heart. Surge, S-U-R-J, which stands for Showing Up for Racial Justice, is a multiracial movement working to undermine white supremacy and to work for racial justice. The Surge National Network has over 150 chapters and affiliates in the U.S. Surge at Sacred Heart is a group of South Bay people who organize, mobilize, and educate white folks and others with privilege around racial justice. And we work directly with people of color-led accountability partners to show up in the ways that they request of us through campaigns and direct actions, which include de-escalation at protests, phone and text banking, public comments at council meetings, and more. Our accountability partners are Silicon Valley Debug, the Rapid Response Network, and the Amamutsan Land Trust. At Surge, we believe racial justice and economic justice are interconnected. So with our fundraising, over 70% of the money raised goes directly to our accountability partners and our racial justice campaigns. The remaining portion supports administrative and programmatic expenses. Our recent campaigns include the Care First Coalition to hold the County Board of Supervisors accountable in conducting a robust community engagement process as they paused construction of a new jail and solicited community input for our alternatives. We also are currently engaged in the campaign to protect Eurostock, working to protect Amamutsan's sacred land from destruction as a sand and gravel mining quarry. Surge also creates and facilitates workshops to broaden participants' understanding of the role of racism and white supremacy in our society, and to help participants acquire actionable steps and practices for dismantling them. Thank you for selecting Surge at Sacred Heart as your November Justice Partner. If you're interested in learning more about Surge, please consider joining our upcoming campaigns meeting on Wednesday, November 16th, or invite us to do a workshop with your group. And I failed to mention this at the 9 a.m. service, but I will also be out there at the yellow table following the service if you have any questions or would like to give your information so that we can send you some more details about what's coming up. I promise we won't spam you, but yeah, I will be there following the service. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being our partner in the community. And now let us begin our service.
For our chalice lighting, we have this from Kurt Vonnegut. What should young people do with their lives today? Kurt Vonnegut asked and answered, many things, obviously, but the most daring thing is to create stable community in which the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured. Young, old, or in between, let us be daring together. Let us dare to create a community that will outlast us all, that will heal us all in the last lesion of loneliness. May the light of our chalice, the warmth of our hearts, welcome all. Those who dare, those who dream, those who hurt, and those who hope. The centering words. Each week we draw on many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from Kurt Vonnegut Jr., the centennial of whose birth was Friday on Veterans Day. My Uncle Alex, who's up in heaven now, said one of the things he found objectionable about human beings was that they so rarely noticed it when times were sweet. We could be drinking lemonade in the shade of the apple tree in the summertime, and Uncle Alex would interrupt the conversation and say, if this isn't nice, what is? I hope that you'll do the same for the rest of your lives. When things aren't going sweetly and peacefully, pause for a moment and then say out loud, if this isn't nice, what is? As we follow the sound of this gong into silence, let us become more centered and fully present together here.
Please join in the singing as we sing of Hope and Joy, which is number 1060 in our teal hymnal. We're still just getting to know this one, but it's a lovely melody, worth the challenge. As the Reverend Kimberly Debus says, it beautifully portrays our call to love the hell out of this world, which is just what Vonnegut asks us to do as well. Number 1060. We now turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives which we wish this community to share. You can always leave a card up here in this basket with whatever you wish to share. You can write to joyconcern@uucpa.org all week or right now in the service. And if you are on Zoom, you can share in the Zoom chat whatever you wish me to share with the whole congregation. I'm not seeing the, oh, there we go. Kevin to my rescue. He's going to show me the Zoom chat so I can add these things. Then let us allow ourselves extra long time of prayer and meditation to hold all that we've heard, to feel how precious it is to be interconnected, to feel one another's joys and sorrows as our own. As difficult as it can be sometimes to feel these strings tug on our own heartstrings, what would life be if we were not connected in that way? And so we hold a silence for our hearts to expand, to hold all that we've heard. Blessed be. Will you please join me in singing, "What is This Life?" It is number 94 in our gray hymnal. If you're looking at the online order of service, the words are there. Please rise in body or spirit.
When I saw that Amy was using Kurt Vonnegut as a theme and headliner today, I jumped at the chance to be a worship assistant because it gives me a chance to share my favorite quote from Kurt Vonnegut. The two most important spiritual forces in contention almost everywhere today have nothing to do with nations, political parties, or economic philosophies. The opposing forces are those who enjoy childlike playfulness when they become adults, and those who don't. I've been scoffed at for using that. It seems a little light but I've had this quote nearby since December 1986 when I saw it in the New York Times, so it's kind of a theme song, I guess, for me. I recall a worship association meeting a few years ago. We were sitting outside in a circle, and Amy asked each of us, what's your one phrase that you were looking for in a worship service? And I can hear a bunch of them popping up right now out there. Mine was fun. I turned around and looked at Amy, and I saw a sparkle in her eye, and I thought, well, maybe I didn't waste my word after all. At my former church in Pittsburgh, we formed an organization called the Fun Club. It was F-U-U-N. A Forum for Unitarian Universalist Nonsense. True story. It took many forums. This was a flourishing congregation. For 5 years, it was a steadfast attraction for a high percentage of the people who joined the church. Our patron saint was St. Philip Neri, N-E-R-I, 16th century mystic and priest, the Catholic saint of laughter and joy, our quaint saint. At that same church, we formed the initial chapter, not too widespread yet, of ethical hedonism. Let that one sink in. Please understand, I'm not proposing that we ignore our problems, that we don't face the evils around us, not just here, but worldwide. We're lucky here in this congregation to have many constant, clear-cut recommendations to guide our responses. A few of these guides, a couple of them are in this room here. I formed an acronym, FANS, Fraun, Unger, Neff, and Schaefer, just a few of the names that help us so much get our heads together and keep going forward. There were 12 more, but I couldn't get an acronym that did it. So all I hope to do in this 2 minutes is to remind us of the crucial, indispensable requirement for humor and laughter. For after all, as Kurt Vonnegut said, the two most potent spiritual forces almost everywhere today have nothing to do with nations, political parties, or economic philosophies. Those opposing forces are these: those who enjoy childlike playfulness when they become adults, and those who don't. I think I have something on my mind. I'll sit down now.
The choir's coming up.
Oh,
so
good.
You take them a note?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Can I take your arm?
I'm all right. Go ahead.
Careful.
Yep. The reading this morning comes from the novel God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater by Kurt Vonnegut. Hello, babies. Welcome to Earth. It's hot in the summer, cold in the winter. It's round and wet and pretty crowded. At the outside, babies, you have about 100 years here. There's only one rule that I know of, babies. God damn it, you got to be kind.
We knew for a long time that the service was going to use Kurt Vonnegut as its guiding star because Friday, Veterans Day, as Brian said, was the centennial of Vonnegut's birth. He died several years ago. Appropriate that he was born on Veterans Day, although, of course, he couldn't know when he was born on Armistice Day in 1922 that he would, less than 20 years later, be a soldier. But he went off to World War II and had the grueling experience there of being in Dresden on the night that Allied bombers succeeded in something they had been trying to do and created a firestorm over the city. Fire so complete that almost everybody and everyone on the surface was turned to charcoal and ash, and that even those in bomb shelters were asphyxiated because the oxygen was sucked up to feed the fire. That's where he was. He was one of a small number of people to survive that experience. And then he was one of the core of people whose job it was to help identify some of the remains of the approximately 100,000 Dresden residents who had died on the surface. If you have read only one thing by Kurt Vonnegut Jr., it's probably Slaughterhouse-Five. I had to read it in school. I recommend it. It is his account, in some ways, of that night, of what might happen as we experience or face horrors, cruelties, absurdities, the randomness of life that we see in something like these acts of war. I think that Vonnegut is a prophet for our times and for us, for communities like ours. He wasn't a Unitarian Universalist. He was a fellow traveler, such a prominent and outspoken humanist that he was, for some years, the what's the word for? Thank you, honorary. I'm a little scattered this morning. The honorary, this is why we have our worship associates. Honorary chairman of the American Humanist Association. He was quick to say that it was purely honorary. He didn't have to do any work. Although it did mean that one of the things he did was eulogize for the AHA their previous honorary chairman, Isaac Asimov. It was very much Vonnegut's way to respond not only with great seriousness, but with great humor with satire and wit and an acerbic attitude, but never a cynical one, to respond to the pains of life. And he wasn't shy about using religious language, sometimes satirically and sometimes quite seriously, as when he said in all seriousness that he thought the Sermon on the Mount was one of the greatest gifts that humanity ever gave to itself. Jesus, one of our greatest figures. He was known to invent an entire religion in one of his novels, one I hate to even recommend to you because you might leave Unitarian Universalism and become a Baconist. So I won't tell you the name of the book. You'll have to just hunt through and find it yourself. In any case, to demonstrate some of his humor about being a humanist, when he eulogized Asimov to the American Humanist Association, he began his remarks by saying, "Isaac is in heaven now." Oh, he was so pleased with himself. He said they were rolling in the aisles. Because, of course, neither Asimov nor he nor anybody gathered there thought that that was where Asimov was. But he said, "You go right ahead. I think it's a good line. So after I die, say, Kurt is in heaven now." Say it right now. Kurt is in heaven now. And laughing, no doubt. For him, being a humanist meant he didn't believe that this whole beautiful, messy, random world, or any world, was under the control of any mighty being. And he also believed that this life, 100 years or so at the outside, this is all we've got. So he would probably laugh as well to be called a prophet, and no doubt reject the label, but I mean it. His prophecy, of course, was carried out through, I don't mean in terms of predicting the future, I mean in terms of holding up for us possibilities. Looking at the way the world is and suggesting ways we might respond to it. His way of doing that was through words, although he didn't become a novelist until he was 50 years old. That's when his first book was published, and he published a few dozen before he was done. And so he shows, through the language of novels, ways that we might respond. Namely, he shows the way characters respond to this world. Show us some possibilities of what are we to do faced with a Dresden, with nuclear weapons, with environmental destruction, with a country that holds so much promise and fails to live up to its ideals so often. With events like this week's election, which, while perhaps being more hopeful than many people feared, still leaves us afraid for the future of our democracy, of human rights, of this planet. Gives us ways as well to respond to things closer to home, as when one among us, somebody we care about and love, is on the border between life and death. So here's just a few ways that a few of his many characters respond. Perhaps the closest thing that he had to an alter ego, the young soldier who is the central character of Slaughterhouse-Five, Billy Pilgrim, is in Dresden. And what happens to him is that he becomes unstuck in time. Now, if you read the whole novel, you'll know that that's not entirely a curse. It's a gift, in fact, that allows this young, traumatized man to see a truth about human life that we who are stuck in time, proceeding 1 second at a time in order, can't see. Nevertheless, it's clear that this unsticking, this becoming unmoored, is strange and painful and confusing, and that to any outside observer, what it means is that Billy Pilgrim has gone insane. He's lost his mind. He's lost touch with reality. That is, of course, one of the things that may happen to us when we view this world, this life that we have, and particularly its difficulties. There's another character in another book who responds by saying, in effect, with his actions, well, if there's nobody in charge of this whole thing, if there's no divine guidance about how we are to live, if all we do is live out our short lives on this fragile planet and then go to dust, then what is the meaning of anything? He embraces nihilism. And Vonnegut is very clear from the way his narrator responds and what this nihilist does, that that is not a path that he wants any of us to take. The nihilist wrecks his friends, the narrator's house, he kills his pet. Nothing means anything, and so he says he doesn't have to take any responsibility for anything he does. That's one response to the randomness, the absurdity, the pain of life that we get to see through his characters. And another way is a way shown by an artist in another of his novels. I'm not saying all the names because I don't want to give you any spoilers. This artist is a young man who is extremely capable of rendering anything, rendering in drawing something so that it was almost indistinguishable from real life, indistinguishable from a photograph. A great gift. And yet he felt and was told by others he revered that he was not an artist. He had no soul. He had nothing to say with this great talent. And between that and other events of his life, he felt himself to be a laughingstock and a failure. And then he too, being of that generation, went to World War II. And although he was comparatively unscathed, at the very end of the war, he had an amazing experience as people were in the messy chaos of liberation, final battles, transports of soldiers here and there. He had this amazing experience of being above this valley of thousands of people. And finally, his response to his experiences there, his response to being alive in this difficult world, was to paint a portrait of 10,000 people, minutely, and giving in his mind a story to every single one. Some stories he knew from having been there, like the story of somebody just liberated from a concentration camp, starving, bewildered, devastated, and free in this valley of 10,000. The Canadian bombardier who was injured and afraid and wondering if he would make it home. The women in the root cellar picking over potatoes and other root vegetables, and knowing that as waves of soldiers, possibly enemy soldiers, came through their town, what awaited them on the surface was rape and ruin. And a portrait as well of a German soldier who suddenly, as the camp at which he had been enslaving people was liberated by the Allies, had fled and was now awaiting who knows what kind of justice at the hands of Allied soldiers who were coming, or the people there in this valley with him. He gave portraits like this to every figure. And the way this massive painting looked from a distance, these portraits of 10,000 people, it looked like a field of shimmering jewels. This artist's response was to notice and relate the stories of these kindred human beings, which is to say, as I read the book, us, all of us, we're all there. Suffering and hoping and dreaming and daring, and asking for our stories to be told. I call him a prophet because I think that he calls us by his example not to ignore the evils that surround us, or that we do, or that we suffer, that we witness, not to ignore suffering, but to find ways to respond. That will make meaning and a better world, a better life out of our engagement with these difficult things we witness. I wanted to say in this sermon, I wanted to give us time to look around a la Uncle Alex Vonnegut, and say, if this isn't nice, what is? I'm not totally feeling it right now. It's not always the moment to say that. But along with Kurt Vonnegut, I encourage you to do it when you're noticing that life is going sweetly or peacefully. Because it's true. It's true even in our moments of sorrow, which are always with us, sometimes very close to home, as they are for us today, and sometimes just in the newspaper or whatever we know is happening somewhere in the world. And it's important, if we are to live fully and well, to nevertheless look around and say to ourselves, say out loud, if this isn't nice, what is? That's part of his response. I also want to note communities like ours, Unitarian Universalist communities, that we count on to help us to respond to what we see in this world, to help us to engage. They get a lot of challenge from those opposed to humanism. The opponents of humanism those of more traditional, for lack of a better word, faiths, for example, they may look at a community like ours and say, what good is it? You don't, some of you may, but you don't all as a whole worship someone who is going to guide you and get you through and give meaning to your lives. You don't believe that, or most of you don't, some of you don't, that anything follows after this. What meaning is there in a life that just goes for, at the outside, about 100 years and then foot? What good does it do? How can you even call yourselves a spiritual community or a religious community if you don't believe those things as one? And then we get some pushback from the humanist side as well. From people who say, if you say you don't believe in those things, if that's not what holds you together, why are you doing this? What is the use of ritual? What is the use of coming together and singing these songs and holding up these stories from ancient traditions, these strange metaphors that you call metaphors, but that somebody somewhere believes in literally? How can you even make this work, or why bother when some of you believe such different things from one another that you may think someone else's beliefs are nonsensical and someone else's beliefs are arid? How can you even respond? How can you even engage with this world? And that's why it would make him laugh, or maybe because it would make him laugh, I say, Vonnegut is a prophet for us. Because he says, make these communities. Make the kind of communities that will help you to find out two things. What we see in the portrait of ourselves, of 10,000 people, at a time of crisis, a time of worldwide crisis, as well as a trauma in the life of every single person there. It's like he is saying to us, here's what you need to do. Here's what your communities need to do, help you do. To see everybody and to recognize there that we, all of us, each of us matter. That we matter. That we shine like a field of jewels. And to realize that what we do matters. Which is why this self-proclaimed humanist, this person who didn't believe that anyone's in charge or anything continues, who made a joke of the idea that he is in heaven now, who surely did not believe that there was anything written down for us to live by, nevertheless put in the mouth of one of his characters this idea that there's a rule. Just one rule. God damn it, you've got to be kind. Because if we matter, and every jewel in that shimmering field matters, and it matters what we do, then we've got to be kind. That's what we've got. It may be all we've got, or who knows? Maybe something continues after this life. Maybe something matters to a greater being. But what we know we have is one another right here. All the beings of this fragile planet. They matter. We matter. and it matters what we do. He probably wouldn't mind this word. I know some of you do, and it might make some of the people at the American Humanist Association roll in the aisles. But as I say, one of the reasons he's a prophet to my soul is that he wasn't afraid of religious language. So I will say that what he is telling us is that what we do here is sacred, because we are sacred. What we do for and to and with the rest of this world, it matters so deeply that it is sacred too. So, with thanks to our prophet, all our prophets, all who teach us something about how to face the tragedy and comedy and mess and absurdity and beauty and wonder that is this life. With gratitude to all of you and all of them everywhere, I say, blessed be. And now, speaking of kindness, you know, Cornel West says justice is what love looks like in public. And so our justice partner every month is really our partner in enacting love in public. This month's partner, our partner in enacting love, has justice in its name, and so its name could be showing up for love. That is what Surge does. Show up for love, help us to show up for love. It helps us to act with love, to be kind in a world that needs our kindness. So let us give as generously as we can in that spirit. You can give by the QR code and link in your order of service. There's instructions there on how to use text to give via Give Lively. And I believe we'll have a box up here. Thank you, Barbara, for contributing cash or a check as well. Thank you for your gifts. Now will you please rise in body or spirit, and we will sing number 6 in the gray hymnal, Just as Long as I Have Breath. The words are also there in your online order of service. Thank you, Arteme. So glad to have you here. Everyone, please stay after the benediction for coffee and conversation here online. Chat with one another. We'll begin with our greeting time, a chance to speak to someone you haven't met before or haven't seen in a while. And of course, take your conversations around to Second Sunday Lunch if you're able. Now, if you are online, I hope you'll unmute so we can all hear your voices. And everyone, reach out. If you're comfortable holding hands, show that you're here, that you're connected in spirit by putting hands over your heart if you prefer that, while we say our benediction together.